It's been a day, man. Today's been a day.
Well,
I've
hopefully it'll
been
be a nice cap. And
Yeah, I
I
mean
see
not a bad day, just a very
in a
full
day.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. Well, all right, folks. This is Mac McCullough, Willard Library, bringing you another episode of Stories of Sundown. My guest tonight is Jeffrey Cotton, also known as Jay Dahm, and I'll have you explain that a little bit. But Jeff is the founder and CEO of Big Homies Incorporated. It's a nonprofit in town that works with at risk, if we want to use that term, um, young people, and he's involved in a number of other things around
Well,
town.
hopefully it'll
Be a nice cap.
hold on. I'm trying to share your
Young
live
people,
stream.
and he's involved in another.
So
Yeah, well,
I guess I gotta turn my phone down, huh? My
that's
bad. Go ahead, bro.
that's okay, man. That's the charm of live streaming on the internet from our computers. You'll hear the dogs barking in a minute around here, I'm sure. Hey, Jeff, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, man.
It's good to have you on. Just got to get to know you a little bit last week or so, and glad to have you on. But let's start with your name. Even in writing the promo for this, Jay or Jeff, and when we met, I didn't have a chance to ask you about it. Tell me a little bit about that.
My nickname?
Yeah, yeah.
My nickname, it actually used to be my rap name when I used to rap back in the days when I was
Okay.
young, but my nickname come from one of my homies who's passed away now, Tremaine Watson.
Okay.
When we was young growing up, we all used to give each other nicknames, man. I guess it's just some street stuff, bro. You feel me? So
Yeah. Yeah.
we used to give each other nicknames based off our characteristics, and some of them stuck and some of them didn't, but most of ours stuck. We still call each other those nicknames.
Yeah. Good. Well, tell us about Big Homies. You started that actually quite a while ago, but tell us about the work
Yeah,
that you do.
well, I dreamed of it years and years ago, maybe 2 or 3 decades ago. The idea of it was rooted in something called the relapse prevention program, right? I was an at-risk youth myself. I ended up going to prison when I was 18 years old, and part of prison, in order to get a parole, you have to write a relapse prevention program. Basically, you have to tell a story about what you're going to do upon release and how you're going to keep yourself out of trouble and things of that nature. And my relapse prevention program was based on my desire to start like a modern day Y center mixed with big brothers, big sisters, right?
Yeah.
So I had been locked up for a very long time at that time, and I had kind of did a lot of self reflection, so I knew what I felt was missing in my life when I was a teenager, going to school in Battle Creek and running the streets in Washington Heights. So I wanted to fill those gaps in with some mentoring and whatever else I could figure out. So that's where it was birthed at. Um, when I came home, I didn't, I never really seen it. What I had, the dream that I had in my mind, I never really seen that dream until I went to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta when I got off parole, and man, I met some guys, bro, that was doing so much community activism it blew my mind. All ex street dudes, all ex gang members, and everything, right? So I'm looking at this like, this is the void, this is the gap that's not happening in my community. So when I moved back from Atlanta, I just started it, man. I had a community cleanup at Claude Evans was the first activity in the community, and people just showed up. I didn't know who was gonna show up. I didn't know how it was gonna go. I just bought some bags and some rakes, and a lot of people actually ended up showing up. I met a lot of people that I still deal with to this day: Terrence, Eugene, Todd, Lynn Ward, Gray, Sam. They showed up. They seen it on social media, um, and that's how it really started. A few,
Yeah.
maybe a year after that, I brought my first partner in. Guy named Damon Brown. We used to be partners when we first started taking it real serious and
Yeah.
negotiating with the foundations and all of that. Um, and we spent a few years, man, out here in these different communities in America, all over. We just didn't go to the West Coast, but down south, East Coast, New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, Flint, Water Drives. Like we would just target the some of the worst communities where we knew somebody at and try to go do something positive and see if we could change that energy.
Yeah, yeah. I've had Damon on this program a couple of times. He's an amazing story. And please tell me if I overgeneralize, but you had similar stories. You had
Yeah.
um, similar things that you had to get through, and so you bring a lot of personal experience into this work. And I'm curious about what you've learned on top of that. How do
Yeah,
you
our,
manage
our
your
stories are beyond similar. We were in the same gang. They intertwined. We was homies growing up. And our stories are not singular either. It's like the story of Washington Heights or teenage adolescence in Battle Creek in the late '80s and early '90s. I didn't necessarily hear your question though.
Well, my question was really about how, obviously you have a lot of empathy for young people that are experiencing something similar to what you experienced, and how you took that, upon reflection applied that. I'm curious about how much you've learned since you did try to apply that, and how that improves your skills, and just how you've made that
Oh
better.
man, I you know what? I learn every day, bro. I learn something new every day. Like every year, I would say ever since I was been um active in the community and engaging um um different angles of this community, I've been learning something every step of the way, whether it be the 501c3 nonprofit tax exempt status. Like I really had to dive into that and learn that when, I had to turn that dream into an actual business, right? And take myself serious. Just recently, I took a couple courses at KCC and learned the history of social services and,
Yeah,
and things of that nature. That blew my mind, just the history of it. And this is work that I'm already doing, but I never knew the history of it, right? Like I never got a formal education in social work. I never, until last semester. And I learned something then. Right now, I'm learning the FAA rules for this drone. I'm starting a new audiovisual company. So I'm learning how to fly drones. But I mean, every time you talk to one of these kids or even one of your peers, you learn something in this
yeah.
city, man. It's very interesting around
Yeah, yeah. I just think a lot of times we follow our passions into work, and we think we know a lot, and then I always find that the more I think I know, the more I find out that I don't know, or the more I learn, the more I find out I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, who
it's
was that? Aristotle? Was that Aristotle?
yeah,
I think
something
that
like that.
I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
was Aristotle. Yep. The more you know, the more you realize you know nothing.
So, talk about how you find the young people and families you work with, and how does one learn about big homies?
Well, I mean, it's not really. You don't have to find them, bro. They in the same places that they were when I was a teenager.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like East Side, Northeast Side, South Side, Washington Heights, Orchard Park, Urbandale, Lakeview. They're all over the city. It's not necessarily about finding them. It's more about how do you make yourself available to them to help them, which is the difficult part, right? We know for sure right now it's some kids in this city that need some help and maybe some extra attention that they can't receive at home, and maybe the school is not even qualified to give them, right? Only very few individuals are people who have maybe lived their life experience or actually understand the psychology behind their decisions, and so making yourself available to those kids or residents, it's not always kids either, but
yeah,
making yourself available, being somewhere where they can reach you is the most difficult part. Um, and then when you have connected with them, and they are some individuals that seeking help, the transportation from where they're at to the resources that they need is also a barrier. So I think I struggle more with trying to make sure that they can reach me than I do with finding the kids. We see them every day. We read about them in the news when those nights go haywire. When they have those real bad nights, we know where they at, and it's perpetual. It's not like it's a small problem. It's
yeah,
it's 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 a part of a culture. It's a culture of youth in America. It's not just black youth. It's not just white youth. It's not just poor youth either. It's a culture of youth in America where I don't know, bro. For some reason, we reach a certain age where we seem to not want to listen to our parents, and we become more susceptible to listen to our peers. It's a certain age where that takes place, and man, the message our peers are sharing at a young age in America are, I would probably vote to say that they about at least 75% negative.
Hmm.
It's about at least. I don't know. I don't know a
Where,
lot of positive things in these kids' lives.
where do you think that comes from?
Programming, capitalism, um, the study of the human stimuli. You know, our system, what we react to. They know what we react to the most, and they've been pushing them buttons, bro. And all I see is it gets getting more and more negative, and anybody that studies psychology just a little bit knows the effect that has on the mind, especially a young child or a teenage adolescent. So to continuously make an investment in such negative forms of entertainment says something to me. It just it seems a little wicked to me.
Yeah. So how do you turn that around in your work? How do you
Well, I'll quote on the ground Battle Creek on this one. We just gotta our approach must always be solutions based. You know, whatever the problem is, on the streets, one of the first big issues we dealt with was the hood versus the mob beef, right? We had we had came home from prison after a long time, and all the young dudes that we knew when we were young were kind of at odds with each other when we came home, right? So we had to conduct some outreach, and when I use the term we, I mean me and a guy from the South Side, slash East Side, K Rock, Kenneth Hightower. I reached out to him. He had a lot of influence out here. He cared about the same young dudes I cared about. He remembered when they was all cool, and we just started going out wherever they was going. That where they used to get into it at, we would just be there, and we would just be some big homies and stop certain things or get them to talk certain things out and put guns down. And they did it. You can't do it without their help. If they didn't really want to do it, they wouldn't have done it. We just create the avenue or an atmosphere for something positive to take place. If you don't create that atmosphere, there's no way something positive gonna happen just on its own in the mind of a teenager who's not really dealing with logic and reasoning yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So how do you work with some of the institutions, let's put it that way, that where a lot of these youth are? I mean, are you welcome in the schools? Do the police seek out your insight, your connections?
I do. I am welcome with the schools. I have a program with the public school system. I have a very good rapport with Kim Carter and Freddie McGee and Samuel Campbell. They all work for the Battle Creek Public Schools. All of the institutions. Our first contract we had years ago with Lakeside was we conducted those mentoring sessions at the Urban League. So I've worked with everybody, bro. We even had a police community dinner. I think maybe like 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
and I'm not a big I don't cheer a lot for those guys. I'll put it like that. I don't cheer a lot for those guys. But I'm not beyond reproach. I know that it's necessary to have law enforcement in the community. I just don't really like the way that they deal with my community particularly. But all those channels are open. I don't believe it's anybody in the community that I haven't dealt with. It's a few people that I might not like that much, but we dealing with the same target. If you concerned with the kids, I always tell them we don't have to like each other, bro. We don't gotta be best friends or nothing. But if we both concerned with the same community and the same kids, then we're gonna bump into each other sooner or later. We're gonna be at the same place at the same time, trying to help the same people. So, this is a small city, but all of the systems and institutions I can say have been very helpful. I don't know how they've been with everyone else. I mean, WK Kellogg Foundation and BCCF. I mean, like things I don't know, they've been accessible to help me learn them.
Mm.
Even offered, some of their teams to aid and assist me to sit because I'm trying to system build. I don't really just try to get grant money. I want to build a system that becomes a part of the culture of our community, right? I want it to be on each side of town. So wherever you at in your neighborhood where you grow up, we know now, just studying myself and those like me, we're tribal. We're going to attach ourselves to something, whether it be geographically, imagination. We make something up and they can call it a gang or a tribe or whatever they want. But we associate ourselves geographically with those closest to us. So we want to have headquarters on each side of town where those young brothers and sisters and those kids after school or when they get kicked out of school have somewhere safe that they can go and it's not far away from where they live at.
Yeah. You said something a bit ago about if you able to pull young people, you'd probably get about 75% of negative. Uh, I'm curious. Maybe
I said if we polled the messages that they receiving.
Oh, I see. I see.
Right,
Well, I'm glad I got that clarification. But it's
right.
still the question I wanted to ask is, this has been a difficult few years for kids everywhere, for adults too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I have a young adult son, and you hear a lot about young people being kind of worried, anxious, depressed. I mean, what are kids feeling, and how do you meet them where they're at, Jeff?
They super stressed right now. It's been some turbulent few years for them,
Yeah,
and their education is thrown off. It's impossible to qualify or quantify the effects of these COVID years right now. We won't know how they affect these kids until they're into their careers and college educations. How we won't really be able to tell if it threw them off track, if maybe that homeschooling helped them briefly. We don't really know. The statistics are actually very mixed on it, but I don't know. Battle Creek different. If we just talking about Battle Creek, I believe for the most part, Battle Creek has handled these conditions very well compared to other cities. Even if we go back to the George Floyd riot situations and
yeah,
the racial tension that's been going on in the country, minus what happened on Thanksgiving night at the Cricket nightclub with Xavier West, with nobody being arrested for that unsolved murder. But for the most part, there hasn't been, just we didn't just go around here and try to tear each other up, right? And the kids they adapted. They adapted. I think it's been harder on the parents than the kids here.
yeah, yeah.
I know a lot of people that
You
lost their
wrote about
jobs.
that in a piece in on the ground. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, why do you think that it was relatively peaceful, so to speak, other than that one example you gave? I mean, what makes Battle Creek special in your estimation, or what makes it different? What prepared us? Or did we just get lucky? That can be an answer too. I don't know.
Well, I mean, bro, it depends on how honest you want me to be on this program,
I want you
right?
to be as honest as you want to be, man.
Well, historically, Battle Creek has historically used, I would say, black organizations, right? Predominantly black organizations like the Urban League, NAACP. The history of these organizations in Battle Creek, right, were always responses to the assassination of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, right? The introduction of these organizations in Battle Creek was responses to these things, and they employed a certain group of people to stop uprisings in the predominantly black communities. So, if you want me to be honest about it, this is a subdued community, right? It's not a lot of social activism. It's not a lot of fight. Like, we are not aware of the power that the people possess here as much as even Kalamazoo. Although it's a few more people over there, but Kalamazoo is much more socially active as a black community for sure, right? Battle Creek, we still trying to wake each other up and get involved in the things that's taking place in our community. And it's an old saying, I forgot who said it, but if you introduce an unorganized group of people to an organized system, they will be taken advantage of. There's no other way. They just gonna put them wherever they want them or need them at. This unorganized group of people cannot change an organized system. So until we get organized in our communities, Urbandale, Lakeview, Washington Heights, Post Edition, wherever we live at as community members, like we did back in the days, like the Constitution tell us we supposed to. Until we do that and form those, private community groups where we just discuss each other's welfare, and we discuss what should be happening with any available government funding, anything going on in our community, new developments. We as a people should have a say so in these things. We are not that active in that regard yet. A couple groups of us are,
Yeah.
right? But there's no real black collective in Battle Creek right now.
So is that something you're working on? Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bro. Yeah. Yep. I got a new company called Black Business Table. I actually just started, and um the core of it, I want to introduce a e-commerce website where we make all of our local products, because there's a lot of people in Battle Creek making a lot of things starting in Battle Creek, but make our local products available on a global market. But also I want to form like a business group around that e-commerce website where we're business owners and land owners in the community, and we just coming together helping each other prosper, really helping each other develop our businesses to the point where they're actually real businesses, licenses, paperwork. I want us to share the information that we've all learned on our journey. We've all learned something different. We all took grasp and took hold of something in a different way, right? So I call those our swords. Whatever sword that you wielding, we need you to swing it at the issues in society, and let's get them out our way.
Yeah. 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 I don't want to, you're not talking about inciting violence. You're just talking about
Mm-mm.
inciting involvement, engagement, hope,
Yeah, yeah. What's
expectations.
Yeah, yeah. Matthew, what? Is it Matthew 10:34? Do not think that I come to bring peace. I did not come to bring peace. I came to bring the sword. Those were the words of Jesus. It's one of my favorite scriptures, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean division, but it's a lot of things going on that just must be cut out. Like, we gotta stop. It's a lot of stuff going on in our community for sure. I only really speak for my community. If I speak for somebody else's community, they just ask me to use my voice. But my community, it's a lot of stuff we got to cut out. It's a lot of things that we indulge in on a daily basis that's crippling us economically, socially, spiritually, mentally. Like, and we aware of them now. This is the age of information. We know, right? So the old saying, when you know better, you do better. It's hard to do better when there is no where to go to be that better, right? Like a lion deciding to be a vegetarian in the jungle sounds insane. You know what I'm saying? So just trying to focus your energy on pure positivity in such a negative environment is sometimes counterproductive. So we trying to change the environment as well.
I think you called it in something I read that you wrote a village based vision. Am
Yeah,
I getting that right?
yeah.
What is a village based vision?
Well, I mean, it stems from our ancestors. Um, and it's under the umbrella of the youth village dream that Pastor McCoy has shared with the community. Um, we have a vision of functioning and operating like a village, making sure all of our businesses are intertwined and helping each other instead of competing and defeating each other. Making sure that at least this main section of Washington Heights community that's connected to downtown, for starters, is thriving and economically being developed, so where we can have black owned businesses or Washington Heights. I don't care if you're white, as long as you live in Washington Heights, we want some community owned businesses in our community. Growing up, every corner store in Washington Heights was black owned. All of them, 4, 5, 6 different ones. There's none now. We have no black owned corner stores, I think, in Battle Creek, Michigan. I don't know if we can say that about too many other black cities with a above 15% black population.
Hmm.
That's not normal. That's what I mean. Statistically, there's something wrong there. So we know if we're 17.8% of this population, the black population is, then we should have at the least 5 to 10% businesses in this city. I don't know if we got 10% black owned businesses in the city if we go down that list. That would be an interesting statistic to find out. I
Sure.
wonder.
What do you
Because it's some, but it's few. It's only a few of them.
and what do you attribute? I mean, you've used the word subdued before. I mean, what do you attribute that to?
The late 80s and early 90s, the government waged war on the black community. Literally. Like it's not even just an illusion. And I know it sounds outlandish, but they've apologized for it. You know what I'm saying? Like the Clintons, Joe Biden, they've all apologized for it. You know what I'm saying? Like they enacted some measures that devastated our community, bro.
Yeah.
Devastated, real bad. The drugs and the prison system, the introduction of the crack epidemic and the mass incarcerations, it devastated low income communities and predominantly black communities across America. It wasn't just our government legislation; it was coming down from the top. When you really read the details of what they call the Joe Biden crime bill, and you see the things that they took away from, right? Not only in the community programming, but also institutional programming. I was going to college and prison at the time. They stopped it. I would have came home with a college degree. They just now, I just heard on the radio yesterday that they restarted it. It's crazy how 20, 30 years later, after the same individual that was a part of the office and wrote the laws that destroyed these communities and took away these policies, wrote policies to take away these programs. He's now back in office and they enacting the programming. But I don't think it's him. I believe it's his administration, you know, actually taking a real close look at what happened whenever they was making him look bad, because it was definitely making him look bad on his campaign. And I think they might be reacting to it somewhat. They changed nothing's absolute. We can't say everybody's completely bad, but that dude right there caused a lot of harm to the black community in the late 80s and the early 90s that I think we still bouncing back from.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we still bouncing back from it.
When we met the other day, we talked a little bit about your feelings about Battle Creek too. And someone just tuning into the first 30 seconds here might think you were pretty down on it, but you're pretty up on the city.
Oh no, I love Battle Creek.
Yeah.
I'm just a realist. Yeah, I'm just a realist. I know that it's a lot of work to do. You
Yeah.
know, you would have to be able to see things from my angle to know what up and down even is. You know what I mean? Like, to identify barriers that's in people like myself and others' way, to identify those barriers and try to seek a solution to overcome those barriers isn't negative at all.
Yeah.
It's a process that we must go through as Americans. If nobody else on planet Earth needs to do it more than us, I don't know who, like, we have to analyze whatever it is that's eating away at all of us. We can't just keep going on like everything's fine and dandy when we just continuously keep producing tragedies, man. Like these kids losing their lives and shooting each other and dying as teenage years before they grow facial hair. Those are tragedies that we must address.
Yeah.
We have to do something, and it's gonna take everybody. Like, we all must be invested. Like, I'm past the mad that shit now. If that person probably would have heard me about 5, 10 years ago, they would have seen the mad me. Like, I'm sick, you know what I mean? But I got way more hope in these youngins right now than I've ever had in my life. These kids right now, they are addressing everything.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk a little bit about what promise you see in this community and how you're trying to tap into, and who are some of the people you see leading that charge.
Oh man, we got a lot of leaders in this community, man. We got a lot of positive leaders in this community. I'll start with Pastor McCoy for sure. Um, I deal with him a lot, actually. For some years, I've been dealing with Pastor McCoy a lot. We've had a bumpy relationship from the beginning. But I know that his program and that space down there is the epicenter of the youth activity in Washington Heights. Like, if you want to go find the Washington Heights kids somewhere where they safe and somebody engaged, that's where it's at. So I do a lot of business with him. I do a lot of, I'm always concerned with the school kids. I don't necessarily only target the very bad kids, right? Like the kids that's in school, that's waking up, going to school every day. I feel like they need some extra attention as well because they trying. So I target the kids. Statistics show that ninth grade is a very pivotal year in adolescent development. So we designed a program based around ninth graders and helping them make sure that they on a path to graduation. So the school system. Who else? I deal with everybody, bro. I'm on the human relations board. You know what I'm saying? Like, I deal with everybody in the city. Like, I know leaders everywhere. You know, Jeremy Andrews. I've learned so much from him. And I used to work for Sprout years ago. And when I first started Big Homies, he used to give me the most nonprofit advice that you can imagine. I probably should have been paying him. You know what I mean? um, I got a close Mikey, Dr. Glass, very, very close relation. I call him Mikey. I went to school with Dr. Glass, and he got the BC Diaper Initiative over there in Parkway Manor, doing a lot of wonderful work for a lot of kids and a lot of people. I do everything. I consult him with everything. That's one of my homies since childhood. So I do a lot of work with him. Alicia Johnson, she's a strong, powerful leader in our community. Her work is very necessary at the moment. Very, very necessary. Um, we are not trying to, but we are starting a cognitive behavior therapy program for some of the at-risk youth, to get them to adjust some of their response techniques and behaviorisms and situations where they might get triggered and things of that nature. um it's a long list, bro.
Yeah.
I could go on for days with the list, but I've dealt with just about everybody in this city, and I know that we have a lot of people who care. um I believe that the only thing missing in this city, the only one thing is two. I would say two things. I would say one is a lot of leadership positions of authority are people that's not from Battle Creek have those positions of authority. It's a lot of certain positions in Battle Creek that I believe should be locals, like CEOs and things of that nature. Like, we should make sure that our kids know that they can grow up and all these, like, we got a foundation down. And I'm not knocking Lejeune. I love Lejeune, you know what I'm saying, and I love Kim, but they both do very good work. But I believe that their positions in this city should be more available to the kids. Like, the kids need to see them. The
Yeah.
kids need to see them, and they are. I know Kim maybe not from here; she's from Kalamazoo, but that don't take away how much she can care for a school system of kids. But they need to see them. We need to see our leaders. They don't really know who is who in this city. They might have heard of some of these organizations. They might have heard of the foundations, but I promise you, bro, that most of these kids, especially the black kids in Battle Creek, don't know how many black brothers and sisters have jobs down there at those foundations and in these systems that they depend on in this city. If we could see behind the veil of power, right? If the kids, we just let the kids see it. Let them see what you do every day. Let them see how much money you really putting out in the world and how much good you're doing. Like, let them see what you do every day instead of just sticking them in them stuffy rooms and making them memorize books. You know what I mean? Like, if we just take the veil away and let the kids see what's really going on, and prepare them to enter this society in a better way instead of just preparing them to be consumers and employees. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. You wrote something also about, or maybe you said it to me about learning to see the beauty in each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was a key point that you think is missing. But also, another quote that I wrote down of yours, that listening and hearing produce different results. You're touching
Yeah.
listening and hearing. What did you mean by that?
Well, listening and hearing produce different results. My dogs is barking. I don't know if you can hear that. They produce different results. You can listen all day long. You can listen. Kids listen to their teachers. Kids listen to their parents, but they don't really hear the message that's trying to be relayed to them. I'm the same way. Sometimes I'm talking to these kids or some kids in my family, and I know they can act like they listening. They can put down their electronic devices. They can give you eye contact, but you can tell if they heard what you said by their actions, behavior, and attitude going forward, which is kind of the basis of cognitive behavior therapy. It's not really trying to dig up your past, and it's not really trying to figure out why you're bad or messing up. It's really, where are you and who are you today, and how can we help you make tomorrow better than yesterday was? Right?
Yeah.
That's like the essence of cognitive behavior therapy. How can I help you develop some response mechanisms to these things that trigger you at home or at school or wherever you get triggered and get in trouble at, right? and and you govern yourself and your own emotions and make the right best decision for yourself in that moment. So we want them to be able to be in the moment. And I think I'm so concerned with it because it changed my life, right? Like I was forced to take that therapy in order to be released. And I realized that I had never even spent a lot of time thinking before. Like I was, I graduated from Battle Creek Central on time, but I had no plan for my future. I had a mother who worked in Kalamazoo and didn't come home until 11:30, 12 o'clock. There was no parents, no adults at my household. My father and my grandfather, all the men in my family got murdered when I was like 15, back to back, right? So I didn't have future planning. I didn't have nobody sitting down like, you want to go to college, you got to write these letters, you got to do this, your grade point got to be there. I didn't have any of those things taking place. So I feel like the least I could do is try to help us put ourselves in a reachable position to be that for the kids.
Yeah, yeah. And what you said before, understanding why you react the way you do in any moment. I mean, just understanding that, where that comes from.
Yeah.
And you used the word earlier, solutions based. I mean,
Solutions based.
That's
Yeah.
what therapy is, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm, I work for On the Ground Battle Creek, and that's what our journalism is based on. You know, we we that's a very odd noise. We search for solution based, stories,
Right.
and especially when we're dealing with the youth. We have a Voices of Youth program starting up pretty soon, and sometimes the youth will, they'll point out the negatives quicker than they will be able to see the positives, right? Although when you inspire them, they find so much positive stuff about Battle Creek. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But when they do point out the negatives, that's the chance to help them become active. Like, well, you can be active. How come up with a solution? What would you do to help that situation? So when you get them to thinking more positive about the same thing that they will be thinking negative about, it just creates a better solution, or at least attempts at a solution.
That's deep, man. I wanted to talk about a couple things before we run out of time. You might have already described it, but I wanted Viatag. Was that the business you were describing before?
Yep, that's one of them. Well, that's really the photo video branch of it.
I see.
Viatag is it's the service branch of it, like videography, imagery, audio, text, and graphics, right? So all of those different things are Viatag, VITAG. All of those different things I'm offering through this new company, where people need edited on the videos, ad campaigns for the companies. I'm targeting. What I'm really doing with the Viatag is I'm targeting the advertising and marketing dollars that are leaving Battle Creek. Right, we have a few Fortune 500 corporations. We got a lot of businesses, a lot of small business developments. Our advertising dollars are leaving Battle Creek, so I've invested in a few cameras, a few drones to be able to, make little short commercial ads and different placements and video tagging and editing and footage and stuff. So I've been focusing on that a lot lately. But that's what Viatag is.
Okay. Yeah. And I wanted to, we've talked a couple of times about second wave on the ground, journalism there. What's that been like? And what
I
do you
love
see
it.
the future of journalism, hometown journalism?
And I love it. And if this Voices of Youth program takes off how I'm hoping it does,
talk about that
we're
too.
going to change the atmosphere of journalism in Battle Creek, bro. We're targeting 50 youth. It's paid opportunities. They get paid for attending journalism workshops. They get paid when their stories get published, just like real journalist prices. It's a 3-month program that we piloting right now, and we about to try to get the kids just to tell the story of the city. Whatever is, we got a lot of different organizations involved, a lot of people in the city supportive of it. We are trying to make it as diverse as possible so we can tell the story of all the communities in the city of Battle Creek, which we've been doing since 2019, since I worked for them. The first thing we did introducing ourselves to the city was spend some time doing stories on each side of town. We went through Urbandale, the old northeast side. That's a historic district. Washington Heights, Lakeview, Post Edition. We did stories on and downtown, and then we just started doing random stories, positive stories. Like we like neighborhood stories.
Yeah.
And with the youth, We first had a project with, I had a project with Heidi through On the Ground by the Creek. I developed a project with Heidi at the Calhoun Area Career Center. And it was two different groups of kids that we dealt with, and they were all graphic design students. So they wanted to tell a story in their way. So it wasn't just normal writing journalism and photojournalism. And
Mhm.
that kind of inspires us to address all of Calhoun County instead of just the, you know, dark sections of the city.
Yeah.
And by dark, I mean the media dark, like the, you got different areas of Battle Creek that we targeted that they don't really get positive news coverage.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we wanted to target those areas and give them positive news coverage, but we're going to try to expand that to Calhoun County now.
Yeah. There's an old saying in journalism, which was my old career, about, we go into certain communities for festivals and crime,
Yep, that's what. Yeah,
you know,
yep,
and
yep,
we miss all the nuance and the complexity and just the
yep,
daily day-to-day lives. It's
yep.
it's been a problem for a long time.
And
And
that and that and that's
even
the very.
researching the history of our city, you'll
Mhm.
often find the narratives that you can easily find leave out quite a bit. You have to dig deeper.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Until recently, and I can say Battle Creek, I believe we've been doing a good job of trying to tell our story and get control of our narrative and not letting it spiral out of control whenever the rest of the nation does all the time. And that's a big factor in it, having these kids invest themselves in media, news, like, that's part of the American spirit, that press. So we need more journalists, we need writers, we need creatives, we need the majority of those kids at the Calhoun Area Career Center. Most of them voted and claimed the biggest thing that they missed is the investment in the theaters and the arts. The creative side of us is like, we need some attention, man. We need
Yeah.
some
We've
attention.
we've had a few local performers and artists on this program, and yeah, just talking about how it's a great network, but it's small, and building that network of community support and and
Hmm.
and frankly, that respect or that recognition that they're here. Um,
Hmm.
right now, I think it's still fair to say that it's still a struggle, but it does seem like it's gotten better in the last couple of years.
It has, and one of my objectives when I was, because I went through you just reminded me of something. When I went through with the Watch the Heights Entrepreneurial Fund, we had to go through a small business development course with the SBDC of Michigan for like 8 weeks, I believe it was. Like, we had to write a real business plan from front, cash flow projections, everything, and they had to go over it. It had to make sense before they made any investments. Excuse me. And I kept pointing out that, as far as commerce goes, we sit in a prime position. Battle Creek is smack dab in the middle of Detroit and Chicago, 2 hours straight shot both ways. And we have many more downtowns: Flint, Grand Rapids, Cleveland, all within traveling distance. If we can't figure out a way to increase the commerce that we are conducting in this city, we not using our minds, because we in a prime position to do business with the whole world. We what, 2.5, 3 hours away from another country. That's international. We can create global business just by selling something in Canada. You know what I mean? As long as we do it online. But we're not reaching outside. Like, I don't think as a community we've tried to grow as much as we can. And I'm not saying we not growing. I just believe that we should try to accelerate the rate of that growth a little bit.
Awesome. I wanted, and there you got another comment from Lauren Kay.
Oh yeah, she one of the homies, so she be showing up. It's people in the community, man, that we don't mention and stuff like this that show up. She's one of them. Jill Anderson is another one of them. Jacqueline Slaby is another one of them. Cheryl Lawrence is one of them. Like, it's people and individuals that Dr. Dotson is another one of them. They just show up. They have they have nothing to gain from it outside of something for their spirit,
Yeah.
and
What?
they show up and make a difference.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about one other thing too. You're on and you mentioned it, the Human Relations Board.
Hmm.
What? I mean, that's new. I mean, relatively new
Yeah,
for the city. What's that been like, and
and
how do you feel about it?
I don't think it's necessarily new. I think it's just been reenacted.
Okay.
I believe it. I believe they had one that existed some years ago. Um, but it's a very interesting dive into politics. I would say for me, it's not the core of politics, but it's an interesting dive. My family, my bloodline has a history of politics. My uncle Donald was the first black mayor of Battle Creek, so I
Well,
got I got a
John's
little
right.
history.
That's
Yeah,
your uncle?
yeah, that's my
Okay.
grandmother's brother. Yeah, yeah, that's my family. So this is my sticking my toe in politics, but it's more. It's I believe that the Human Relations Board is much more than politics, though. Like we really meet and discuss the relationships in the city, and what's going on with us as human beings. And there's some good people on that board as well as the city commission. Man, it's I believe Battle Creek changing from its core and from its community. I think it's time. I see it. I ain't thinking. I see it, and I've been telling everybody about it. You know, they talk about the foundations. I've heard so much stuff about these foundations. All they do is help me. They try to help me. If I go out, they try to help me. Everybody I know really has tried to help me. Only a few people, and they're not worth mentioning that didn't offer some help. This is a helpful city, bro. If we just realize that and come out our houses and get active, man, this city will change this summer.
That's great. That's a great one to leave on. I'm going to ask you one more, and that's really just we're at the beginning of the year still. I'll call it still the beginning. What are your hopes for this year? What do you hope to come out on the other end with?
Man, every time somebody asks me that question, my first answer is I hope that we don't have any homicides this year. I know that's hard to ask for, but you know, I I, I always hope for nonviolence and peace between people first and foremost. But as far as the city goes, I hope to see these investments that are being made in the downtown area, in the Kalamazoo River. And I hope to see all of these investments benefit the people directly. I hope to see some direct engagement this year from the city of Battle Creek, like direct engagement, like in the people's face, wherever they at. And I believe we are going to see it. I believe we're seeing it already. So that's my hope for the city, that we continue to grow, we get more active as a community in Washington Heights for sure, and the rest of the city as well. And hopefully we'll all meet up at a peaceful, prosperous place.
Let's hope so, man. Hey, Jeff Cotton, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me, bro. It's been a real
Absolutely.
pleasure, man. Yeah.
Stick on after we sign off. Just a reminder to viewers that next week, Dick Strader's coming on. Dick, for those of you who know the Mosaic Storytelling Showcase, he's been a storyteller for years, and he's going to come on. We're going to talk a little bit about reviving Mosaic storytelling, and I think there's an opportunity for big homies too, maybe, and think about how we can use storytelling, because it's just an amazing skill and really brings communities together. So he'll be on next week and delivering a story. So look forward to that. Until then, everybody enjoy the spring week, and we'll see you soon.